Hello, everybody. Welcome to the talk, Code Security Reinvented, Navigating the Era of Artificial Intelligence. My name is Joseph, and I'm coming from GitHub, the place where 100 million plus developers are building, scaling, and delivering secure software. Specifically, I'm coming from the GitHub Security Lab, which is a team of security experts with the mission to secure the open source software that we all depend on. And I have a question for you. How many of you are using the open source software? Exactly, so everybody, like someone just said here. Because it's in our supply chains. Either we know it or not, if we like it or not. It's in the cars we drive, the applications we use, our fridge, and so on. And it's exactly in this open source software that my team in the past 4 years have found more than 1,000 of security issues, 600 plus of which have been given security identifiers, also known as CVEs. And we don't just report those, we also help them, the maintainers, to get them fixed. With a fix rate of 96%, for which we are very proud about, because we are talking about two very different worlds. And I see some smiles. The world of security professionals and the world of developers, with a huge gap in between. We quantify this gap to be one application security specialist for every 100 software developers. So let's do this mini exercise. How many of you here today are security specialists? Raise your hands. Okay, keep them high. Okay, let's say 4, or 5, 6, in a room of 400, that is 350 now here. So we almost got that gap, right? In the talk today, I will try to show you with a lot of demos how artificial intelligence can help us minimize this gap. And all we are gonna see today, you can go and use them straight away. It's all things that exist on the platform. The good news, however, is that the world's collective security knowledge is out there. It's in the books, in the skills of people, everywhere. And with AI, we can bring this security knowledge in our fingertips. I put 3 images to draw a paradox at the end. The first image is this one. It's because it's pre-ChatGPT days that AI became a buzzword around us and became very important for everybody in the corporate world and so on. And future applications will have it more embedded in our lives. But I put these 3 images to draw this paradox that how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of software engineers are behind these applications, but until very recently there was no AI behind these software engineers. There was no AI to help them excel in what they do best, which is to craft great software. And this changed with GitHub Copilot, which is the world's leading AI pair programmer. And for those that didn't use it, I put this small example here. You know, the line 3, this one now, it's the one that gives me pain. Personally, I'm a very average software developer, so I had to Google it, I had to find the structure, write it down, test it. It takes ages, not just these like 2 seconds. And out of curiosity, because my demos are full of Copilot today, how many of you have used Copilot before? Perfect. Okay, you'll get a lot out of it today, I hope. And you know, with this friction and what we can see in this room, this statistic is amazing. At the end of 2023, 60% of code that was committed at GitHub, we are speaking about billions of lines of code, was AI generated. And this number skyrocketed from 35% the year before for popular languages like Java, but it's still like a huge number. And just before entering the security path, I want to draw some examples of clients from the real world, so you don't feel what I show today is disconnected. Starting from Mercado Libre, which is a large e-commerce website in Latin America. According to New York Times, they characterize them as the Amazon of Latin America. So this product, Copilot, has helped them to improve productivity and satisfaction. And to put some numbers, they have 13,000 software developers. 9,000 plus of those were using Copilot at the time of this case study. And they improve 50% the time needed to produce the same amount of code. And to put some more context, we are talking about a company that merges 100K PRs per day, pull requests per day. Let's now talk about security. We are here today to see 4 ways. It's more than 4, but I just put like this title because we are going to go to smaller paths. 4 ways developers can use AI to leverage the world's security knowledge. Starting from writing safer code, the mindset behind this slide is that we start left. We don't shift left. Every time we shift left, there are some distance we still need to cover, moving left and so on. But when you start left, you start from the root of the problem. Okay, let's do this exercise together. I'll need at least one volunteer to tell me, and I'm going to repeat for those who are going to watch us, what do you think is wrong here? You can say what line and what is the problem exactly. Okay, which line? Perfect. Okay, so many kind volunteers from the audience told us that in line 23, there's a SQL injection. And let's try to visualize this. Somebody with a malicious intent, instead of passing a real username, could just pass malicious code, like for example, a malicious input to drop the users table, or to like create an admin user with escalated privileges, or to like drop a logic bomb. You get the point. And I'm trying to keep the same example throughout the talk in order to keep it like accessible and easy for those who are not security professionals. Okay, let's start basic and use our AI pair programmer to fix this problem by selecting the vulnerability, the problematic code. And here we get in line 23 what is called parameterized statements in order to remove the vulnerability. And I would like to ask you, do you have any further security concerns with the code you see on screen? And if yes, what exactly, what line? Perfect. Okay, the silence is my goal. Because if we put this silence in a real business, in a real world scenario, we'll have a situation where I'm a developer with a security concern, and I have a group of people in front of me that might be more senior. Maybe I'm afraid to ask you. Maybe we don't have time to ask you. You name it. What if I ask somebody else? I put this in Copilot chat and I ask, is the code fully secure now? I was thinking that as the code is implemented in JavaScript, in line 22, an attacker could pass an object as an input instead of a string, and still achieve SQL injection through a project that is casted into a string. Can you provide me with an additional control in line 22 that prevents that from happening? Indeed, we have a control. Here, it's through a regular expression. I'll show you different ways to do it. But you see straight away the minimization of this gap. And I'm going to go later in some details on how still we had silence, but when I push the code, there should be second layer defenses and third layer defenses to pick this problem up. This shouldn't arrive in production. Yes, I do keep my code simple to, like we are here for 50 minutes to make it accessible, but I want you to think about any security issue. Okay, let's continue now. The common mistake here, and we are on the basics, it was the context and the space. Space, let's start from space. I deleted the vulnerable code from line 23 until line 29, and I gave to my AI pair programmer a specific amount of block to write vulnerable code on. I didn't provide the chance to improve line 22, basically. And I also didn't give my logic. I didn't say, when you get an input, make sure that is a string. That I could do here, which is much better, so I can help my LLM to go through a smaller amount of options and provide me with a suggestion. So in this case, I could provide the logic. I am getting the type of user 3 equals a string in order to check the type of the input, and then I'm getting the parameterized statements again. As a way to help developers around the world to start left, we added a security filter in GitHub Copilot. This is because, why do we need a security filter in the first place? Because when we train the model, we train it in all publicly available code, which includes code that is not secure, code that is low quality. So the filter is something that comes later on and blocks vulnerable suggestions from being given to the user. However, I'm not here today to present you the solution of all our problems. You have to remember that nobody is perfect, not even AI or including AI. This is because GitHub Copilot or any other LLM at their current form are not here to replace security testing. Let's understand why. We are having a machine, a model, that is designed or trained to predict the next word. But security products should have advanced capabilities, right? Like data flow, taint tracking, in order to reliably tell you, not in a generative AI way that is not deterministic, if you have a security vulnerability or not. The answer should be the same every time you ask. When you see the same code, you should get the same answer, which for me at least should be a yes or a no. It's vulnerable or it's not vulnerable. At basic use cases, like the one we have here, I'm asking, the code is the same, okay? List the security issues in the code and propose code fixes to fix those gaps. In this specific case, the results of the AI pair programmer match what I'm seeing on my code scanning solution or in other methods like code review and so on. However, this might be the case because we are talking about very basic SQL injection variants that have been seen many times. But I have personally, through my research, which focuses on the intersection of AI and security, managed to cheat the AI pair programmers. I managed to cheat the previous versions by adding a secure, known to be secure library at the top. So, you get the answer, yeah, what you do is secure now, so keep going. Or you add some guardrails, and the LLM is being confused. They think that, they imported the library, they are using some secure things, all good. You are missing the advanced security stuff. So, final disclaimer is that you should test all your code, including that code that has been suggested to you either by an AI pair programmer, your colleague, your Stack Overflow, whatever, okay? This is the best practice. Copilot is your copilot, you are the pilots. And now, I want to speak about a different area, which is secrets. AI, yes, is not here to replace developers, but are these developers that at the end of 2023, we know through DBIR, data breach investigation report from Verizon, that are responsible for use of stolen credentials. 49% of breaches were caused by that, having phishing at 17%. These two numbers are the majority of the breaches. And because of that, I want to quickly cover how AI could be added or was added to secret scanning to improve secret detection. In the past year alone, 30,000 secrets were detected by the GitHub solution offline. So you could have 30,000 repos that could be taken over, 30,000 write accesses that could be compromised, and so on. When this is being detected locally, it's because it matches a pattern, a regular expression. But with AI, you can also find out about unstructured secrets, such as passwords that you don't know what symbols they have, how long they are. And in this case, AI is helpful to minimize and attack the 49% that we've seen in the previous slide. Let's now move to the second way you can use AI today, which is to find a security issue. Here we go a bit more advanced, but the other rest two ways are more developer-friendly. Okay, For the purpose of these demos, I'm gonna show static application security testing, also known as SAST. The way this works is an inside-out approach. You are having the code, you are reading the code, and you try to understand if something can go wrong because of the code you are reading in front of you. But you know, a tool can do that. And in this case, we are using CodeQL, which stands for Code Query Language. Who is familiar with SQL, the structured query language? Raise your hands. Perfect. Okay, they work very similarly. So in the same way in SQL, you say, from table usernames, give me the username that the name starts with B. With CodeQL, you can query your own code. And you can say something like, query the code, and from the functions, give me the functions that accept user input in one of their input parameters, like index 0, index 1, and so on. So having this in mind, you can detect vulnerabilities as a consumer. For example, in your CI/CD pipeline, this is a second layer defense, as I told you. So I pushed the code before, it was vulnerable, I expect this to pick it up. Let's see how can someone enable it in like 2 clicks. You can go to your code security and analysis tab in a repo, and you can just click that, and that's pretty much it. An action is gonna be created. And then the alerts, you just click on the code scanning, and you can see a list of alerts alongside their severity, low, medium, high, and when you click, you get an explanation. So I have to cover these things before I show you AI. Otherwise, we are gonna be lost in the next slides. Okay, this static application security testing is responsible for picking up almost half of the security issues. This is an amazing statistic, by the way. So among the pen testing, manual code review, a journalist called me and told us that you are hacked or whatever, the police, 50% are picked up like this. And we know this from companies, again, like the Mercado Libre, that they have security feedback early. Now, this feature is the one I'm the most excited about because it can make us have large improvement as humanity, as software industry. It's called Copilot autofix. Let's see how it works. Before this feature, I will push code, and I will see an alert like the one I've shown you. So I have to go back to my code editor offline, fix the problem, push the code again, and see if the alert has been gone or it's still there. Now, with this feature, we have the motto that found means fixed, so that developers can fix things, can fix security issues in the speed of development. So what you can see here is that I pushed vulnerable code, and I have AI adding a comment here, explaining that we have a reflected cross-site scripting vulnerability. You can click exactly in the show paths and see where this occurs. You have the source of the vulnerability, which is where a malicious input gets into the system, and the sink, which is the place that this malicious input is gonna trigger the code to do something malicious. But the most amazing thing is this one. You have this little paragraph explaining to you what exactly was wrong. And look at this. The code in green fixes the problem that the code in red introduces. You can straight away go and commit that, or you can edit it from inside the PR without going to your code editor. You can stay on your browser and do this. You can stay in your browser using code spaces. You have 60 hours for free every month. They are more than enough because you can do this in like seconds, change a parameter and go on. And then in this specific demo, I clicked on the files changed in order to show you that you can have more than one files being changed in order to remove this alert. For instance, you get a bit of like dependable treatment as well, because when I'm gonna scroll down, you'll see that you have some specific packages that have been upgraded to different versions and then code that fixes the problems. So with this, you don't even need to like discuss about it, go back to your editor, push again and check out. You get this automatically. And another thing that is amazing is this button here, Generate Fix. Now we are inside the historical security alert. For example, one that was generated months ago. By clicking the button Generate Fix, we have AI suggesting the code, and we can create a PR out of it. Both GitHub Advanced Security, which includes code scanning with CodeQL, secret scanning, and dependable for supply chain, with Copilot autofix that we just saw, are free for open source. Okay, now, because this is like a 50-minute talk and we have time, for those interested, I want to go in something a bit more advanced, and then we will go back to developer land. You can also become an active user of CodeQL, and AI can help you with that. You have the consumer, which is going to be like 99% of people here, and query writers. And for those who are interested on how this language looks, here we have some simple Java code for a simple Android application that is trying to perform authentication. So we have a username and a password. A username and a password are user inputs opportunities for someone with malicious intent. So with these 6 lines of CodeQL code, I can go in all instances that my code accepts to get user input by the method raw query. I just wrote this code that says from the functions, the raw query method that accepts user input, give me those instances that a query is being passed, and here I arrived in this. Okay, CodeQL has a huge community, and when we had the log4shell vulnerability, for example, let's go back to those days in December. Imagine somebody submitting a query to us from Australia, so that when somebody wakes up in Mexico, they have the CodeQL picking up the problem in their code. And now let's visit some AI use cases. Imagine all these queries that the community has contributed for all this time, right? It's a huge data set that makes me able to stand in the shoulders of giants. So I can ask, what CodeQL queries do you suggest to run on my code based on the specific variant of the vulnerability you see on the right? Because a SQL injection can occur in dozens of ways, right? So you get a short list that makes you to be fast. You don't have to go back to all the previous queries and like read them, understand what they are about, and base your future queries on those. You can just ask this question. When you get the short list, you can ask, can you customize one of those for the specific issue in my code? And then you get the bespoke version of those queries. The next way is to get all paths to something. You can write whatever comment you want. My point is that Copilot can write CodeQL for you. In the same way that Copilot can explain CodeQL for you. That wasn't the case when I was learning as a security specialist, that I tried to find vulnerabilities with it, so that I had to go back to like the documentation and understand what is wrong. But here, you are very familiar now. I can ask follow-up questions, etc. Now, we are also using AI to make this language more feature-rich by pattern recognition. Open source software is gigantic. So instead of like manually understand different patterns and extend the functionality of the language through native libraries, through pattern recognition, we found a real vulnerability in Gradle, which you can find more about in the GitHub advisory database, which is human curated with like 15,000 specific vulnerabilities that empower dependable, and because it's open source, they empower other databases as well. Quick summary is that CodeQL has 10 supported languages. It's community powered, and with the AI modeling behind the scenes, in the future, we believe that this can reduce false positives and false negatives. Let's now continue in the third way you can use AI today for security use cases. Okay, on the right, we have been informed that the code was vulnerable to SQL injection. Yes, indeed, you can go to your favorite search engine and you are gonna arrive somewhere that highly likely is gonna lack customization. So in the same way, I can ask explain SQL example with examples, I can arrive to a tutorial and get something very similar to here. What I found very helpful is the next prompt. Can you tailor your examples on my own code? If I rephrase, can you tailor your examples on the specific variant of the vulnerability that my code is vulnerable to, which might be something very specific, very subtle, and you might fail to bridge the gaps between the theory and the practice. So this way, you can be more specific. And here at the end, you can see this blue text. It's auto-generated, and it keeps the conversation going, which is fantastic in cases you don't need or you don't want to ask something next or you don't know. The next one is security guidance. And I put an asterisk here because it's the first time we are going to query something beyond code, like purely security stuff. Back to supply chain issues. This is Bootstrap. I'm not a maintainer or connected to Bootstrap in any way. But let's say that I consider using this project on my project. I want to have it in my supply chain. What is a valid question you want to ask? Like, just shout a valid question you want to check. Exactly. Like, is it safe? Amazing. So at the top, we have the Copilot icon. And by the way, this question is the #1 question we were asked when we hosted office hours with the open source community. Everybody was coming, like huge projects that you know and you use, asking us, how can you hack us? How can you exploit this, exploit that? So this question has become more democratized now. And the question I ask here with the variations, what is the attack surface of this project? So you get a short list of files with the explanation that, you might have a cross-site scripting in case you use these in a specific way for the sidebars, or whatever. It saves you tons of time, and it gives you a neutral person, machine, some pointers on where to start from to answer this question. Is it safe? The next one I want to show you is fuzzing, because, it's something that many developers were interested, and many security experts face some bottlenecks when generating the boilerplate code. For those that are not aware for fuzzing, it's a technique where you throw, imagine, millions of inputs into a text box, into an input box, and you try to see some strange behavior, like a bad response or taking a long time to answer. It's an outside-inside approach. It's a public approach. Okay, back to the chat. First of all, I want to create the automation for this fuzzer. The code on the right is a bit different, but it doesn't matter what it is. I have the harness, I have the automation. But what I'm missing now is the #1 bottleneck that myself included. It takes some time. I want to generate these millions of strings, the fuzzing strings, that I want them to be malicious, I want them to be long, malformatted, you name it, okay? So if you are a developer that wants to do this, make sure that in this specific case, you might have somebody like a security specialist that is the pilot, not the co-pilot. In here, I have generated the script, and then again, I'm getting the auto-generated blue text that can help me to ask good questions in case I'm not familiar with security. Let's now chat about privacy, because it's the #1 question people ask or their main concern. And it gets different variations. Like this question can range from, when I use Copilot, are you gonna train the model using my code? Are you gonna get my code and suggest it to others? Are you gonna take the prompts and put them in the new model and check the answers if they are better than the previous model? You get the point, right? So the answer is that with the business and the enterprise solution, there is nothing being retained. The prompt is the only thing that travels securely across the internet. And once we have the prompt in order to be able to reply, the prompt is being dropped. With the individual license, you have the chance to opt in or opt out at any stage from improving the product. In the same way, you have this in pretty much every other software. And there is a website that answers these questions. It's called GitHub Copilot Trust Center, with different categories like security, privacy, IP and open source, labor market, and accessibility. You have dozens of questions, all are being answered one by one. Let's now go back to the initial problem statement, that there is one application security specialist for every 100 software developers. Let's see this survey from 500 developers that are senior developers between 5 and 10 years of experience in US-based companies that have 1,000 plus employees. This survey, by the way, is long. It was like 20 pages. I took the most important things and I combined them to add the most value today. So the question was, what are your teams spending the most of their time doing? Again, we are talking about devs, okay? 32% writing code, which is expected. And look at this one. This is like reactive verbs, finding and fixing security vulnerabilities. The percentage shows that it's important for management to do this activity here. And then you have 30% getting feedback from end users, more answers included, synchronous and asynchronous communications, talking about new features, and so on. We have inverted the question, and the question became, what would you focus most of your time, given that you have time given back to you from using AI coding tools? And the reason I included the large e-commerce website from the Latin America here, Mercado Libre, it's because they saved 50% of their time in development, which they could really use for something like this. Security reviews and code reviews, both taking 45%. I wanted to draw the parallel from a real client that I personally don't know what they do with their 50% to what these 500 developers wanted to do. So this shows that security reviews are considered important. And then final question was, how many of you are using AI either inside or outside of your job, with 92% replying yes. This means that AI is already transforming how developers approach their day-to-day work, and this talk wasn't like a sci-fi one. Today we saw 4 ways developers can use AI to leverage the world's security knowledge. In summary, we had to write safer code, remember the, how do you call them, the disclaimers, right? That you should test all your code and follow best practices, no matter who is suggesting you the code. You can find security issues with CodeQL or other AI-supported languages. You can have developer training by benefiting from the bespoke examples based on the specific variants of the security vulnerabilities in your code. And finally, the guidance, the security guidance to get the boilerplate code, tailored examples, and as a developer, achieve security things without the resources needed to do that. Based on my research, I believe that there are other opportunities as well for AI in security. When it comes to threat intel, you can ingest large amounts of intel in order to help you prioritize what's important. For malware analysis, pattern recognition can work amazing through going very accurately in malware signatures from like the past 12 years. Incident response, both in detection and for IOCs in order to be more specific, indicators of compromise. Pen testing, we kind of did something small today with generating exploits or like scripting, speed up the research. And with SecOps for policy automation, incident guidance, and anomaly reporting. And finally, generate reports is something that we can do very easily just with text. Before I close, I want to show you a game I created, which is very popular among developers, and I'm extremely happy about it. So, yeah, I know somebody says it's popular, but you can find the numbers yourself, okay? So why we did this game? Because many people were not happy learning security from video-based trainings. So we created a repo that you can open and stay in your browser, stay inside the code editor, play using the 60 hours for free every month. It's gonna take you like 10 hours and you'll build good skills. And let's see how the game goes. You have the same file structure in every level. You have a code file, which includes vulnerable code, but is functional. And we give you unit tests for that initially pass. However, there is a hack file, which also includes unit tests, that initially fail in order to show you that you fail to pass the level. You can go to the next level once both the hack file and the unit tests are passing. You are given a hint and also model answers, very long model answers with references and so on. The first season is mostly on Python, with one level being in C, but the second season, because it's community generated or contributed, has levels in JavaScript, Go, GitHub Actions, one level in Python, and I told you JavaScript, right? Yeah, and JavaScript. So we have a contribution guideline as well. You can just go to gh.io, it's a QR code game. It's inside the website with other repos as well. It's called Skills website, and you can play for free. So that was me. I love creating content for developers because I believe that as security professionals, we lack the dev-focused language. We might not have the best vocabulary to speak with developers. We are mostly like, this is how I'm going to hack you, and this is how bad what you wrote is. But I prefer to speak as a developer because I have a dev background as well. I love to give talks like this one, create tutorials, create videos to add value. And you can follow the team page on X, formerly Twitter, at GH Security Lab, where we publish our security research, our dev-focused content, and overall, I think you'll get a good value out of it. We have GitHub Universe coming up in just 2 weeks. You can attend virtually, or you can attend physically if you happen to be in San Francisco. It's our annual conference that we announce the next wave of AI and everything really for the amazing products that you'll start loving the day after Universe. Okay, thank you for today. You have been an amazing audience, and I'm here for the next 12 minutes for your questions, and I'm hanging around the conference in the next days. Thank you again.
All systems are nominal. Initialize Genesis